Standing in my childhood driveway with my belongings scattered across the pavement, I watched my parents nod approvingly as my sister Madison screamed about how I was no longer welcome in her family home. The neighbors stared from their windows while she threw my laptop case into the street, cracking the screen. When I looked to Mom and Dad for support, they simply turned their backs and walked inside with her. That moment taught me something crucial about family loyalty. Sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones orchestrating your destruction. But what they didn't know was that I had been quietly building my own case for months. Before we dive into how I turned this humiliation into the sweetest revenge, I want to know, are you watching from your phone or computer right now? If this story hits close to home, smash that like button and subscribe because family drama gets so much deeper than this opening scene. Trust me, you'll want to see how this sister who thought she had won everything ends up losing it all. 3 months before that driveway disaster, I had stumbled onto something that would change everything. I was 24, fresh out of graduate school with my MBA and temporarily staying at home while job hunting. Madison, 2 years older, had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. She worked as the office manager at Dad's construction company, a position she had held for 3 years, despite having no formal business education. It started with small things that didn't quite add up. Madison drove a brand new BMW while claiming she was struggling financially. She wore designer clothes and took expensive vacations, all while supposedly earning a modest salary. When I asked innocent questions about her lifestyle, she would get defensive, claiming she was good with money or had side hustles she didn't want to discuss. The real discovery came during a family dinner when Dad mentioned being confused about some financial discrepancies at the company. He had built his construction business from nothing over 30 years, employing nearly 50 people and earning a solid reputation in our community. But lately, he seemed stressed about cash flow issues that didn't make sense given their steady contracts. "I cannot figure out where the money is going," Dad said, rubbing his temples. "We have more work than ever, but somehow the accounts do not balance properly." Madison quickly changed the subject, suggesting Dad was probably just tired and making calculation errors. She offered to handle more of the financial responsibilities, to take pressure off him. Mom praised Madison's helpfulness, calling her such a devoted daughter for wanting to protect Dad's health. That night, I couldn't shake my suspicions. Madison had always been manipulative, but this felt different, more calculated. I decided to do some digging, starting with public records and business filings. What I found made my stomach turn. Over the past 2 years, Madison had been systematically embezzling money from Dad's company. She had created fake vendor accounts, inflated supply costs, and diverted payments into her personal accounts. The BMW, the clothes, the vacations, all funded by stealing from our father's life work. But the financial theft was just the beginning. I discovered Madison had been feeding Mom and Dad lies about me for months. She told them I was jealous of her success, that I was planning to demand a partnership in the company despite having no construction experience, and that I had been talking badly about them to friends. She painted me as entitled and ungrateful, slowly poisoning their perception of me. The manipulation was sophisticated and cruel. Madison knew exactly which insecurities to exploit. She told Dad I had called his business outdated and said I thought I could run it better with my fancy MBA. She told Mom I had criticized her parenting and claimed she had failed to prepare me for the real world. None of this was true, but Madison presented these lies with tears and apparent hurt, making herself seem like the protective daughter trying to shield them from my supposed cruelty. She had been building her case against me while simultaneously robbing them blind. Every time Dad mentioned financial concerns, Madison would redirect his attention to my supposed character flaws. When Mom worried about family dynamics, Madison would share another fabricated story about my alleged disrespect. The most damaging lie was about my job search. Madison told our parents I was deliberately avoiding employment because I expected them to support me indefinitely. She claimed I had turned down multiple job offers because I thought they were beneath my education level. In reality, I had been applying constantly and had several interviews scheduled, but Madison intercepted some of the communication by accessing my laptop when I left it at home. I found evidence of her accessing my email account through saved passwords on the shared family computer. She had been reading my correspondence with potential employers and even sent rejection emails from my account to some companies, making it look like I was uninterested in their positions. The financial records showed Madison had stolen over $200,000 across 2 years. She had used the money not just for personal luxuries, but also to fund her elaborate deception. She bought expensive gifts for our parents on special occasions, making herself look generous and successful while actually spending Dad's own money to earn his praise. But Madison's plan went beyond theft and manipulation. She was positioning herself to take over the company entirely. I found documents showing she had been researching how to gain power of attorney over aging parents and had been subtly suggesting Dad might be developing memory problems. Her goal was to push me out of the family completely, then gradually assume control of Dad's business assets by convincing everyone he was becoming incompetent. The driveway confrontation had been her masterpiece, a public humiliation designed to make reconciliation impossible. She had planned every detail from the timing when neighbors would be outside to the accusations that would justify their actions. Madison wanted witnesses to see me being rejected by the family, ensuring I could never return with claims about her behavior. What she did not know was that I had spent weeks documenting everything. I had copies of financial records, screenshots of her fake vendor accounts, and evidence of her email interference. I also had begun recording our conversations after noticing inconsistencies in her stories. After the driveway humiliation, I had two choices: retreat in shame or fight back strategically. Madison expected me to disappear quietly, too embarrassed to challenge the family's decision. Instead, I spent the following week in a cheap motel organizing my evidence and planning my counterattack. My first move was reaching out to Dad's business attorney, Marcus Rodriguez. I had met him several times at company events and knew he genuinely cared about Dad's welfare. Marcus was initially skeptical when I requested a private meeting, probably assuming I was just a disgruntled daughter trying to cause trouble. "I need to show you something that will protect Dad's business and his reputation," I told Marcus over the phone. "Madison has been stealing from him, and I have documentation to prove it." Marcus agreed to meet me at his office on a Saturday morning. I arrived with 3 thick folders containing bank statements, vendor receipts, email printouts, and financial analysis spreadsheets I had created using my MBA training. Marcus's expression grew increasingly serious as I walked him through the evidence. "This is sophisticated embezzlement," Marcus said, studying the fake vendor accounts. "She has been very careful to cover her tracks, but the pattern is undeniable once you know what to look for." I showed him how Madison had created shell companies with names similar to legitimate suppliers. Instead of paying Rodriguez Concrete Supply, she would send payments to Rodriguez Construction Services, an account she controlled. The differences were subtle enough that a busy business owner might not notice, especially if he trusted his office manager completely. "The total amount stolen is approximately $215,000, I explained. "But the damage goes beyond money. She has been manipulating my parents against me while positioning herself to take control of the entire company." Marcus was particularly disturbed by the evidence of Madison's plan to have Dad declared incompetent. I had found printed articles about gaining guardianship over aging parents and handwritten notes about signs of memory loss she could document. "We need to involve law enforcement," Marcus said. "But first, we should inform your father privately so he can decide how to handle this within the family context." That was exactly what I had hoped to hear. Marcus called Dad and arranged an emergency Sunday meeting at the office, claiming there were urgent legal matters requiring immediate attention. He did not mention my involvement, knowing Dad might refuse to come if he thought I was behind the meeting. Sunday morning, I waited in Marcus's car outside Dad's office building. Through the window, I could see Dad and Marcus reviewing documents at the conference table. Dad's body language told the story: initial confusion growing anger, and finally what looked like devastation as he realized the extent of Madison's betrayal. After an hour, Marcus texted me to come inside. Dad looked like he had aged 10 years in 60 minutes. His face was pale, his hands shaking slightly as he held the financial documents. "Is this all true?" Dad asked me directly, his voice barely above a whisper. Every word, I replied. I am so sorry you had to find out this way, but I could not let her destroy everything you built. Dad stared at the evidence spread across the table. I trusted her completely. She was helping me because I thought my memory was getting worse. The missing money, the confusion about accounts. Madison kept telling me it was normal aging, that I should let her handle more responsibilities. That was when I realized the full scope of Madison's psychological manipulation. She had not just been stealing money. She had been systematically undermining Dad's confidence in his own mental abilities. Every time he noticed a discrepancy, Madison convinced him it was his fault, his failing memory, his inability to keep up with modern business practices. She was gaslighting you, I explained, making you doubt your own perceptions so you would rely on her more completely. It is a classic manipulation tactic. Marcus laid out our legal options. We could file criminal charges immediately, pursue civil recovery of the stolen funds, and seek restraining orders to prevent further access to company accounts. But Marcus also warned that family prosecutions were emotionally devastating and publicly embarrassing. Whatever you decide, we need to act quickly, Marcus advised. Madison likely knows that her theft will eventually be discovered, especially with the company's upcoming annual audit. She may be planning to disappear with whatever money she can access. Dad made his decision with the strength that had built his business from nothing. File the criminal charges. Madison made her choices, and now she has to face the consequences. I will not let her destroy what took me 30 years to build. That afternoon, Marcus contacted the district attorney's office and provided our evidence package. The Financial Crimes Unit agreed to open an investigation immediately given the detailed documentation and clear paper trail. But we also had to consider Mom's reaction. She had been completely deceived by Madison's lies about me, and learning the truth would be devastating. Dad decided to tell her privately before any arrests were made, giving her time to process the information. Monday morning, while Madison was at the office, presumably conducting more fraud, Dad sat Mom down in their living room. I was not present for that conversation, but Dad later told me it was one of the hardest things he had ever done. Mom's initial reaction was complete denial. She could not believe her golden child was capable of such calculated cruelty. She accused Dad of being manipulated by me, suggesting I had fabricated evidence to get revenge for being kicked out of the house. It was not until Dad showed her the bank statements and vendor records that Mom began to accept the truth. The evidence was simply too overwhelming and detailed to dismiss. Marcus had organized everything chronologically, showing exactly when each theft occurred and how the money was diverted. The breakthrough moment came when Mom realized Madison had used stolen money to buy her an expensive necklace for her birthday 3 months earlier. The receipt was in Madison's financial records, paid for with a fraudulent vendor check. Mom had treasured that necklace as proof of Madison's love and success, but now it represented the depth of her daughter's deception. By Tuesday morning, our family's private crisis was about to become very public. The district attorney's office had reviewed our evidence and was preparing to file formal charges. Marcus advised us that Madison would likely be arrested within 48 hours, giving us a narrow window to prepare for the aftermath. That was when I realized I needed more than legal support. I needed allies who could help protect Dad's business reputation and ensure Madison faced full consequences for her actions. My MBA program had taught me about crisis management, and I knew that perception could be as important as facts in determining outcomes. My first call was to Sarah Williams, a former classmate who worked in public relations for corporate crisis situations. Sarah had handled several high-profile embezzlement cases and understood how to control narrative during criminal investigations. The key is getting ahead of the story, Sarah explained during our coffee meeting. Madison will try to paint herself as a victim once she realizes she has been caught. She will claim she was under pressure, that family dynamics drove her to desperate actions, or that she intended to pay the money back. Sarah offered to help craft a communication strategy for Dad's company. We needed to inform employees, clients, and suppliers about the situation before they heard rumors or read about it in local news. The message had to be clear: this was criminal behavior by one individual, not systemic problems with the company's integrity. My second ally came from an unexpected source: James Patterson. Dad's head foreman for 15 years approached me in the parking lot outside Marcus's office. He had noticed unusual patterns in supply deliveries and payment schedules, but had not wanted to question Madison's authority. "I always wondered why we were getting bills from vendors I had never heard of," James told me. "When I asked Madison's about it, she said your dad had found better suppliers and that I should not worry about the business side of things." James had documentation of his own. Delivery schedules that did not match invoices, supply orders that seemed inflated compared to actual job requirements, and conversations where Madison had explicitly told workers not to discuss purchasing decisions with Dad. "She was isolating your father from his own business operations," James explained, gradually taking over communications and decision-making while making it seem like she was helping him. James agreed to provide a statement to investigators and testify if necessary. His testimony would be crucial because it showed Madison's deception went beyond financial theft to operational manipulation of the entire business. But my most important ally was someone I had not expected: Rebecca Morrison, Madison's former college roommate who worked as a forensic accountant. Rebecca had maintained a friendship with Madison over the years, but had grown uncomfortable with Madison's increasingly lavish lifestyle and evasive explanations about her income. Rebecca contacted me through social media after hearing from mutual friends about the family situation. She had been watching Madison's social media posts and suspected financial irregularities based on her professional experience. "Madison has been posting pictures from expensive restaurants and luxury shopping trips multiple times per week," Rebecca told me. "Based on what I know about office manager salaries, her lifestyle never made sense." More importantly, Rebecca revealed that Madison had been asking her for advice about hiding assets and transferring money to offshore accounts. Madison had claimed she was helping a friend with a complex divorce situation, but the questions were specific enough to suggest she was planning her own financial escape. "She asked me about cryptocurrency conversion and international wire transfer procedures," Rebecca said. "At the time, I thought she was just curious, but looking back, it seems like she was preparing to disappear if her scheme was discovered." This information was crucial for Marcus and the district attorney. If Madison was planning to flee with remaining stolen funds, they needed to act immediately to freeze her accounts and prevent further theft. Wednesday afternoon, Marcus received a call from the district attorney's office. Madison's arrest was scheduled for Thursday morning, but they had discovered she had been accessing company accounts remotely and transferring money to newly opened accounts as recently as Tuesday night. "She knows something is wrong," Marcus told Dad and me during an emergency meeting. "Either she has realized you discovered the theft, or she has been planning this exit strategy for weeks." We made the difficult decision to have Madison arrested at the office in front of employees and clients. It was not ideal for company morale, but it was the only way to prevent her from accessing financial systems or warning potential accomplices. Thursday morning, I positioned myself across the street from Dad's office building with Sarah and Rebecca. We wanted to witness Madison's arrest and be available if Dad needed support. The scene was surreal. Watching police officers enter the building where I had visited Dad countless times as a child, knowing they were there to arrest my sister for crimes against our family. Madison's arrest was swift and professional. Through the office windows, we could see her initial confusion turn to panic as officers explained the charges. She looked around frantically, probably expecting Dad to intervene or protect her as he always had before. But Dad stood firm, his face showing the pain of betrayal, but also the resolve of a man protecting his life's work. When Madison was led away in handcuffs, several employees came outside to comfort Dad, their shock and support evident. The immediate aftermath was chaotic but manageable thanks to our preparation. Sarah had drafted a statement explaining the situation to employees, emphasizing that this was an individual's criminal behavior and that the company would continue operating normally. James helped maintain work schedules and reassure crews that their jobs were secure. Mom's reaction was the most heartbreaking part of that day. She arrived at the office just as Madison was being placed in the police car, having heard about the arrest from a neighbor. Seeing her daughter in handcuffs broke something inside Mom that I was not sure could ever be repaired. "How did I not see this?" Mom kept repeating. "How did I let her fool me so completely?" But even in her grief, Mom began to understand the full scope of Madison's manipulation. She remembered conversations where Madison had subtly undermined my character moments, when Madison had redirected attention away from financial questions, and instances when Madison had isolated Dad from business discussions. "She played us against each other," Mom realized. Every time you tried to tell us something was wrong, Madison had already prepared us to distrust you. That evening, our fractured family sat in Dad's office reviewing the damage. The financial theft was quantifiable, $215,000 stolen over 2 years. But the emotional damage was harder to measure. Madison had destroyed trust-manipulated relationships and nearly succeeded in taking control of Dad's life work through psychological manipulation. However, our alliance was growing stronger. Marcus had connections with other attorneys who specialized in asset recovery. Sarah was managing media relations to protect Dad's reputation. James was organizing employee support to maintain business operations. Rebecca was helping trace Madison's hidden accounts to recover stolen funds. Most importantly, I was rebuilding relationships with Mom and Dad based on truth instead of Madison's lies. The process was painful but necessary, like cleaning an infected wound before it could heal properly. As we planned our next steps, none of us realized that Madison was about to make one final, desperate move that would test our newly formed alliance and nearly destroy everything we had worked to protect. Madison's arrest should have been the end of our nightmare, but it turned out to be just the beginning of an even more devastating chapter. 3 days after she was released on bail, Rebecca Morrison called me with news that made my blood run cold. "Madison contacted me yesterday," Rebecca said, her voice shaking. "She wants to make a deal." I thought Rebecca meant Madison was trying to negotiate a plea agreement, which would have been reasonable given the overwhelming evidence against her. But what Rebecca revealed was far more sinister and personal. "She offered me $50,000 to testify that you fabricated some of the evidence," Rebecca continued. "Madison claims you created fake documents to frame her because you were jealous of her success and wanted revenge for being kicked out of the family." My heart sank as Rebecca explained Madison's new strategy. Unable to deny the theft entirely, Madison was pivoting to a narrative where I was the real villain, a bitter daughter who had manufactured evidence to destroy her innocent sister. According to Madison's version, I had manipulated Dad's confusion about finances to create a false embezzlement case. "She has a lawyer now, someone who specializes in white-collar defense," Rebecca told me. "They are building a case that you used your MBA skills to create convincing but fraudulent documentation, taking advantage of your father's trust and your mother's grief over family conflict." But the truly devastating news came next. Rebecca had been recording her conversations with Madison's defense team, and what she discovered made me question everything I thought I knew about loyalty and justice. "Your mother has been meeting with Madison's lawyer," Rebecca said quietly. "Madison convinced her that this is all a misunderstanding, that you have been manipulating evidence, and that family loyalty requires protecting Madison from false prosecution." Mom had been secretly visiting Madison in jail, listening to her tearful explanations about how I had orchestrated an elaborate frame job. Madison claimed she had been planning to surprise Dad by organizing his financial records, and that I had twisted her legitimate work into evidence of theft. She painted herself as the devoted daughter being destroyed by her jealous sister's lies. The manipulation was sophisticated because it contained just enough truth to seem plausible. Madison acknowledged some financial irregularities but claimed they were honest mistakes or temporary borrowing that she intended to repay. She presented her expensive lifestyle as evidence of her business success in side ventures that she had been keeping secret to avoid family jealousy. Most damaging of all, Madison had convinced Mom that prosecuting her would destroy the entire family permanently. She argued that Dad's business reputation would never recover from a public embezzlement trial, that the negative publicity would ruin his legacy, and that the smart thing was to handle everything privately within the family. "Your mother is planning to ask your father to drop the charges," Rebecca warned me. "Madison's lawyer has prepared a repayment plan that would return most of the stolen money over 5 years, and they are presenting it as a win-win solution that protects everyone." That night, I met with Marcus to discuss this new development. He had been expecting something like this. Family embezzlement cases often collapsed when emotions overcame evidence, and Madison was clearly a skilled manipulator who knew exactly which psychological buttons to press. "The challenge is that your mother genuinely believes she is protecting the family," Marcus explained. Madison has reframed this from a criminal betrayal into a family dispute that requires mercy and forgiveness instead of prosecution. Marcus showed me the repayment proposal Madison's lawyer had submitted. It looked reasonable on the surface. Madison would return the stolen money through structured payments, resign from the company, and submit to financial monitoring to ensure no future theft. She would also write a formal apology acknowledging her mistakes and promising to make amends. But this is not about money, I told Marcus. Madison tried to have Dad declared incompetent so she could steal his entire business. She manipulated our parents against me for months, poisoning every family relationship. A repayment plan does not address the psychological damage or prevent her from trying again. The situation became critical when Dad called a family meeting for Friday evening. Mom had convinced him to hear Madison's lawyer present the repayment proposal, arguing that family healing was more important than legal punishment. Madison would attend via video call from jail, giving her the opportunity to make her case directly to Dad. I realized that Madison was about to achieve exactly what she had planned all along, escaping consequences through family manipulation while positioning herself as the victim of my vindictive accusations. Even worse, if Dad accepted the repayment deal, Madison would effectively be rewarded for her theft with a comfortable payment plan instead of prison time. Thursday night, I called an emergency meeting with my remaining allies. Sarah pointed out that if Madison avoided criminal prosecution, her reputation would be largely intact, making it easier for her to commit similar frauds in the future. James worried that dropping charges would send a terrible message to Dad's employees about accountability and justice. But our biggest challenge was that Mom had become Madison's unwitting ally, and her emotional influence over Dad was considerable. Madison had successfully reframed the situation from criminal versus victim to family unity versus family destruction, making Dad's choice seem like a test of his love for his daughters. Friday evening arrived with the weight of months of preparation hanging in the balance. Dad had spent weeks learning to trust me again, understanding the depth of Madison's manipulation and accepting the necessity of legal consequences. But now, Mom was asking him to choose between justice and family harmony, exactly the position Madison had been maneuvering toward since her arrest. As we gathered in Dad's office for what might be the final decision about Madison's fate, I realized that proving Madison's guilt had been the easy part. The real challenge was protecting that truth from being undermined by the same emotional manipulation that had created the problem in the first place. Madison's face appeared on the conference room screen, tears streaming as she prepared to make her final plea for family forgiveness instead of legal accountability. Everything I had worked for over the past months was about to be decided in the next hour, and I was no longer certain that truth and evidence would be enough to overcome the power of Madison's psychological manipulation. The meeting that would determine Madison's fate and our family's future was about to begin. The video conference with Madison began exactly as I had feared. Her lawyer, David Chen, a polished defense attorney who specialized in minimizing white-collar consequences, had clearly coached her performance perfectly. Madison appeared on screen looking fragile and remorseful, her usual confident demeanor replaced by what seemed like genuine vulnerability. "Dad, I am so sorry for the pain I have caused," Madison began, her voice breaking convincingly. "I made terrible mistakes with the money, but I never intended to hurt you or steal from the family business. I was trying to help organize things and got in over my head." She explained that her expensive lifestyle had been funded by successful cryptocurrency investments and freelance consulting work, not stolen money. The financial irregularities, she claimed, were her attempts to modernize Dad's accounting systems without bothering him with technical details. "I should have been more transparent," Madison continued, "but I was trying to protect Dad from stress and prove that I could handle more responsibility. When the amounts got confusing, I panicked and made bigger mistakes trying to fix things." Mom reached across the table and squeezed Dad's hand, clearly moved by Madison's apparent sincerity. Even Marcus looked concerned as Madison's lawyer presented their repayment proposal with charts and timelines that made everything seem reasonable and manageable. "My client acknowledges financial mistakes but maintains that criminal charges are excessive given her intention to repay everything with interest," David Chen stated. Family businesses often have informal financial arrangements that can appear irregular to outside observers, but are perfectly legal within the family context. I watched Dad's resolve wavering as Madison spoke directly to him through the screen. This was exactly the Madison he remembered, the devoted daughter who had always tried to help who made mistakes from good intentions rather than malicious greed. Her psychological manipulation was so subtle and effective that even I momentarily wondered if I had misinterpreted some evidence. But then my phone buzzed with a text message that changed everything. The sender was Detective Linda Rodriguez from the Financial Crimes Unit, and her message was brief but explosive. "Check your email. Emergency evidence. Madison not alone." I discreetly opened my laptop and found an email with attachments that made my hands shake as I read them. Detective Rodriguez had been conducting a parallel investigation based on our evidence, and what she had discovered was far more extensive than anything we had imagined. Madison had not been working alone. Her boyfriend, Trevor Walsh, whom none of us had ever met, was a professional financial criminal who had been coaching her theft operation from the beginning. Police had arrested Trevor that afternoon when they discovered he had been running similar embezzlement schemes with accomplices in 3 other cities. The evidence was devastating. Detective Rodriguez had found text messages between Madison and Trevor dating back 2 years, showing how he had taught her to create fake vendor accounts, manipulate financial records, and psychologically isolate business owners from their operations. Madison had not stumbled into embezzlement through good intentions gone wrong. She had been methodically trained by an expert criminal. Even more shocking, the messages revealed that Madison and Trevor had been planning to disappear together once they had stolen enough money to fund a permanent relocation. Madison had been actively working toward gaining power of attorney over Dad so they could liquidate his entire business and retirement savings before vanishing. She was never planning to stay, I realized reading through the evidence. This whole family manipulation was just buying time until she could steal everything and run. The text messages also revealed Madison's true feelings about our family. In conversations with Trevor, she referred to Dad as the old fool and Mom as completely clueless. She had been laughing about how easy it was to manipulate them, bragging about her ability to turn our parents against me through psychological manipulation. Most damaging of all the messages showed that Madison's current repentance was completely fake. She had been texting Trevor from jail about their backup plan, discussing how to minimize criminal charges so they could resume their operation in another state once things cooled down. I interrupted Madison's tearful speech by standing and addressing the room. "Before Dad makes any decisions about family forgiveness, there is new evidence that everyone needs to see." Madison's composure cracked slightly as I connected my laptop to the conference room projector. Her lawyer immediately objected, claiming that any new evidence should be reviewed privately before being presented, but Marcus overruled him since this was a family meeting, not a legal proceeding. I projected the text message conversations between Madison and Trevor, reading them aloud, so everyone could hear Madison's real voice behind the manipulation. The room fell silent as Dad listened to his daughter calling him a fool and plotting to steal his retirement savings. "Dad cannot even balance his own checkbook anymore." I read from one of Madison's messages to Trevor. "Once we get power of attorney, we can clean out everything and be in Mexico before anyone realizes what happened." Mom's face went white as she heard Madison's plan to have Dad declared incompetent. The woman who had been defending Madison's good intentions was confronted with evidence of calculated elder abuse and financial exploitation. But the most devastating message was about me. "My stupid sister thinks she is so smart with her MBA, but she has no idea how long I have been planning this. By the time she figures out what is happening, we will be gone, and she will be stuck taking care of 2 broke old people." Dad's hands were shaking as I finished reading. The daughter he had trusted completely had been systematically planning to destroy his life's work and abandon him in poverty. The family loyalty Madison claimed to value was revealed as complete fiction. Madison's lawyer tried to argue that the text messages were taken out of context or could have been fabricated, but Detective Rodriguez chose that moment to join our video conference with an update that ended all debate. "Trevor Walsh has agreed to cooperate with prosecution in exchange for reduced charges," Detective Rodriguez announced. "He has provided detailed information about Madison's criminal training and their joint plans for identity theft and interstate fraud. We now have evidence that this operation was far more extensive than simple embezzlement. Madison's carefully constructed defense collapsed in real time. Her lawyer realized that fighting the charges was hopeless given Trevor's cooperation and the documented evidence of their criminal partnership. The repayment proposal was immediately withdrawn as everyone understood that this was not a family financial dispute but a professional criminal operation. Most importantly, Dad finally saw Madison exactly as she was. Not a confused daughter who made mistakes, but a calculating criminal who had been systematically destroying his family while planning to abandon him to poverty and humiliation. The transformation in Dad's demeanor was remarkable. The confusion and guilt he had been carrying disappeared, replaced by the clear-eyed determination of a man who had built a successful business by making tough decisions based on facts rather than emotions. "Madison, you are no longer my daughter," Dad said quietly into the video screen. "You made your choice when you decided to steal from me and plan to leave me with nothing. I hope prison gives you time to think about what you threw away." Madison's mask finally slipped completely. The tearful, remorseful daughter was replaced by someone cold and angry, furious that her manipulation had failed. "You will regret this," she snarled. "When Trevor and I get out, you will wish you had taken our deal." That threat was Madison's final mistake. Detective Rodriguez immediately added witness intimidation to the growing list of charges, ensuring that Madison would face significant prison time even if she pleaded guilty to the financial crimes. 6 months later, I stood in the same courthouse where our nightmare had begun. But this time I was watching justice being served instead of fighting to prove the truth. Madison had pleaded guilty to multiple felony charges, including embezzlement, elder fraud conspiracy, and witness intimidation. Her boyfriend, Trevor, had received a 15-year sentence, and Madison was about to learn her own fate. The judge had reviewed all evidence, including the recovered text messages and Trevor's detailed confession about their criminal partnership. Madison's attempt to manipulate our family had been thoroughly documented, and her threats against Dad had eliminated any possibility of leniency. "Madison Walsh, you have pleaded guilty to systematically defrauding your father's business, attempting to manipulate him into signing over power of attorney under false pretenses and threatening witnesses during this investigation," the judge stated. "Your actions represent a calculated betrayal of family trust for financial gain." Madison received 12 years in federal prison with restitution requirements that would follow her for decades. The judge specifically noted that her psychological manipulation of elderly parents constituted elder abuse, warranting enhanced penalties beyond simple embezzlement. More importantly, the investigation had recovered most of the stolen money from accounts Madison and Trevor had tried to hide. Dad's business was not only surviving, but thriving as clients and employees rallied around him once they understood he had been victimized rather than negligent. The months following Madison's sentencing brought healing I had not expected possible. Mom struggled with guilt about defending Madison and doubting me, but we worked through those feelings with family counseling. She gradually understood that Madison's manipulation had been sophisticated enough to fool anyone who loved her. "I wanted so badly to believe that Madison was still the little girl I raised," Mom explained during one of our heart-to-heart conversations. "It was easier to think you were exaggerating than to accept that she had become someone I did not recognize." Dad transformed from the confused, stressed man Madison had been systematically undermining into someone confident and energized about his business again. Removing Madison's constant manipulation allowed his natural sharpness to return, and he began expanding operations with the recovered funds. James was promoted to operations manager, bringing honest communication back to the business. Sarah helped us develop a company culture focused on transparency and accountability, ensuring that no one person could ever again manipulate financial systems without oversight. Rebecca became more than just an ally. She became a genuine friend who helped us implement financial safeguards and audit procedures. Her forensic accounting expertise ensured that Dad's business would be protected against future fraud attempts. But the most meaningful change was in our family dynamics. Mom and Dad began treating me as an equal rather than a child, recognizing that my MBA training and investigative work had saved their business and possibly their retirement security. The respect I had always wanted from them finally came built on demonstrated competence rather than birth order. I also found my professional calling through this experience. Several other families reached out after hearing our story, asking for help investigating suspected elder fraud and financial manipulation. I started a consulting practice specializing in family financial crimes, using my business training and hard-won experience to protect other families from what we had endured. The work was emotionally challenging but deeply satisfying. Every case I solved, every family I helped protect, felt like turning Madison's attempted destruction into something positive and meaningful. I had found a way to transform personal trauma into professional purpose. 1 year after Madison's sentencing, our family celebrated Dad's business achieving its highest annual revenue ever. The company had not only recovered from Madison's theft, but had grown stronger through the crisis. Employees appreciated the new transparency and security measures, and clients respected Dad's handling of the difficult situation. During that celebration dinner, Mom raised her glass and said something that brought tears to my eyes. "To my daughter, who saved our family when we were too blind to save ourselves. Madison may have shared our blood, but you proved that real family is about loyalty, truth, and protecting each other." That toast captured something important about what we had learned. Family is not just about biological connections or childhood history. Real family consists of people who support each other through difficulties, who choose truth over comfortable lies, and who stand together against those who would harm them. Madison had counted on blood loyalty, overriding evidence and justice. She had assumed that family bonds would protect her from consequences for betrayal and theft, but she had misunderstood what family really means. It is not unconditional protection for harmful behavior, but rather unconditional commitment to each other's well-being and growth. The people who helped us through this crisis, Marcus, Sarah, James, Rebecca, Detective Rodriguez, became part of our chosen family. They had stood with us when the truth was difficult and costly, proving their loyalty through actions rather than just words. Looking back on that horrible day when Madison kicked me out of our driveway, I realize it was actually the beginning of something better. That humiliation forced me to stop accepting Madison's manipulation and start fighting for the truth. The pain of family rejection motivated me to build something stronger and more authentic. Madison spent those months thinking she had won by isolating me from the family, but she had actually freed me to see the situation clearly and take action to protect people I loved. Her attempt to destroy me became the catalyst for her own downfall and our family's renewal. Today, Madison is serving her sentence while we continue building lives based on honesty, respect, and genuine care for each other. She chose manipulation and theft over family bonds, and now she faces the consequences of those choices alone. But have you ever experienced family betrayal that made you question everything you believed about loyalty and trust? How do you rebuild relationships after discovering that someone you loved has been systematically deceiving you? I would love to hear your stories and thoughts in the comments below. If this family revenge story resonated with your own experiences with toxic family members or financial betrayal, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family drama and finding justice. Share this video with anyone who might be dealing with similar manipulation. Sometimes hearing that others have survived family betrayal can provide hope and strength. Thank you for joining me through this difficult but ultimately hopeful journey. Remember that real family is not about protecting bad behavior, but about supporting each other and becoming better people. Sometimes the greatest act of love is holding someone accountable for their choices, even when it hurts. Until next time, stay strong and trust your instincts when something feels wrong. They might just save your family like mine did.